I remember well the first time I wrote a poem. I must have been about 7 or 8. I knew all about poetry. At least I thought I did. I knew about rhyme and rhythm, and I suppose I knew that poetry was often about nature, animals, birds, and what have you. So for some reason, I decided to write a poem about bats. Of course, needless to say, I'd never seen a bloody bat in my short life, but I'd read about them in books, and that was enough. So I started writing my poem. I remember I was kneeling up on a chair beside the sideboard. In the dining room, the main room in my father's house in Finglas, there was two main pieces of furniture: the dining room table and the sideboard. When the table was clear, you could sit and write there, but when the table was set, you had to kneel up at the sideboard. That was what I did. My sister always used to do her homework from school at the side of that sideboard. Us children even used to kneel there to read. When I close my eyes, I can still remember what it looked like, with the paper or a book in front of me. Anyway, I can see me spiky child's handwriting taking form on the paper. The title of it was The Bat. Not a whole lot of bats then, but just one. I suppose I was identifying with him, like you would with a human character. I suppose I thought a bat was sort of ghostly or something. The first two lines were, in my best English: "The bat rides the sky at dusk, 'neath the cold glow of the moon." Not bad, what? Without even realising it, I knew not only about rhyme, but internal assonance. Rides and sky in the first line, and cold and glow in the second. It sounds more like Irish poetry than English, but I swear at the time I only knew English poetry. I don't for the life of me remember what the third line was, but the fourth line was, "For dawn will be coming soon." That's a queer one, huh? The bat has scarcely started for the evening, but he has to think about dawn coming. Then there were about 5 or 6 stanzas which I can't remember. But the last stanza was something about the pale light of dawn coming and sending him back to his roost. The last line was, "And his home in the undergrowth he should know." Fat lot I knew about bats, thinking they lived in undergrowth, instead of belfries. I got a bit carried away with that one, making the line too long and all that. But maybe I thought of it as a kind of an Alexandrine, suitable to end the whole thing. Sure, would you give us a chance? I was only 8. Anyway, that's all I can remember of that poem. But I've always hated to waste anything I write, and so I couldn't resist writing the poem again. Taking the first 2 lines and the last one, adapting them, and putting in new stuff in between. Of course, now I do it in dialect, and the problem is that the internal assonance in the third line won't work, because in dialect the word is cowled and not cold. So I left it the English way. Sure, didn't Robbie Burns often do the same, mixing dialect with English when it suited him? So I writ the poem all over again, and of course this time I have a great advantage over myself as an 8-year-old chiseler. I know all about bats. Sure, haven't I often seen them at night or at dusk in a lot of places? Now, the first thing you notice about them is the strange flutter and flight of them. You'd never mistake it for a bird. And of course, you only see them on summer nights. The best place to see them is in an old city, of course. But you can also see them out in the woods, in which case I suppose they would roost in undergrowth. Anyway, in this new version of the poem, 50 years or more later, me bats are urban bats, roosting in old belfries. And as a much older fella, I think about how when you see them and you're out walking late at night on your way home, you feel bloody tired, but they're as lively as a bloody cricket flying around. Other than that, the mood is still the same. thinking of being out at night, the ghostly and the strange, and the queer things that to be going on when most of the world is asleep. So there you are. As I said, I hate to waste anything. And being able to pick up on your first poem as a chiseler is grand, because you remember how it was then, and you can build a bridge back. So you think that, with all the changes in me life and myself, it's still the same fella that's picking up where he left off 50 years ago, and going on with what he writ then.